No, let me tell you something. We are standing at a crossroads. Missouri is not just redrawing lines on a map. It's redrawing the very lines of democracy. And the question is, are these lines designed to lift people up or lock people out? Because history has taught us power without principle is dangerous, and silence in the face of injustice is consent. So tonight we confront the truth head on, is this a surge of strength or the slow bleed of democracy? The power of the pen has always been one of the most underestimated forces in history, yet it has shaped nations, rewritten boundaries, and determined the destiny of millions. In Missouri, this redistricting effort is not just about numbers, maps, and lines. It's about who gets to decide the narrative of democracy and who gets silenced in the process. When we talk about political power, we often imagine fiery debates, campaign rallies, or leaders standing at podiums. But the real battleground is often quieter, hidden in legislative chambers, committee meetings, and backroom deals where maps are drawn and communities are divided. The pen in this context is not an innocent tool, it is a weapon, and those who wield it understand its potential to reshape political landscapes for decades. Every stroke of that pen represents a decision, which communities are kept whole and which are fractured, whose voices are amplified and whose are muted, whose future will be guided by representation that truly reflects them, and whose will be overshadowed by manipulation. Missouri's current battle is no different. By placing the control of redistricting in the hands of those aligned with Trump-backed agendas, the pen is not just being used to draw lines, it is being used to secure power. Those in power understand that elections can be unpredictable, that voters can surprise them, that movements can rise up out of nowhere. But redistricting, done strategically, gives them a way to tilt the scales before the first ballot is even cast. It ensures that some voices are louder before the conversation even begins. When we say, who holds it, controls it, we are acknowledging that the act of redistricting is not neutral. It is a deeply political exercise where motives matter, where intentions dictate outcomes. A line on a map may look simple, but it can determine whether a community has the power to elect someone who understands their struggles, or whether they are diluted into irrelevance by being split into districts where their vote no longer carries weight. And when these decisions are backed by partisan goals rather than democratic fairness, the pen becomes less a tool of representation and more a tool of domination. Consider the broader impact. Once those lines are drawn, they are locked in for years, sometimes a decade. That means children will grow up, communities will evolve, economies will shift, but the political map remains frozen, designed to serve those who held the pen at the time of its creation. This is why Missouri's redistricting matters so deeply. It is not just about 2022 or 2024. It is about shaping the balance of power for an entire generation. The ones holding the pen are not just deciding today's politics, they are deciding tomorrow's reality. The danger here is subtle but profound. When a pen is guided by fairness, it strengthens democracy by ensuring every vote counts equally. When it is guided by power, it undermines democracy by deciding outcomes before people even enter the voting booth. And the truth is, most citizens never even see the impact until it's too late, until they realize their community's vote no longer sways elections the way it once did, until they realize the game was fixed long before they played. Representation versus manipulation is at the very heart of the debate over Missouri's Trump-backed redistricting. Democracy, in its purest form, is built on the principle that every individual has an equal voice in choosing the people who govern them. Representation is supposed to be about fairness, about ensuring that the composition of legislative bodies reflects the diversity of the population they serve. It is the promise that communities can see themselves in their leaders, that the struggles of rural farmers, urban workers, suburban families, and marginalized groups alike all have a place at the table. But when lines are drawn with political intent, Rather than democratic integrity, that promise is betrayed and representation becomes manipulation. Manipulation occurs when maps are carved up not to reflect the natural geography of people and their interests, but to fracture communities for partisan advantage. In Missouri, the act of redistricting has become a battleground where power brokers seek to consolidate influence, not by winning the trust of the people through ideas or policies, but by bending the map to serve their interests. Instead of voters choosing their leaders, leaders choose their voters. This inversion of democracy is subtle, technical, and often hidden behind statistics and jargon, but its effects are profound. A district line shifted a few miles here, a community split across 2 districts there, and suddenly the voices of thousands are minimized, their collective power diluted. Representation is about making sure people are seen and heard. Manipulation is about ensuring only certain people matter. When political operatives in Missouri redraw lines to secure a stronger hold for one party, what they are effectively saying is that not all voices are equal, that some communities deserve to be broken apart so their influence can be minimized. The moral danger here is that manipulation masquerades as legality. Redistricting is, after all, a legal process required by the Constitution, but legality does not guarantee fairness. A law can be twisted into a tool for exclusion just as easily as it can be used to protect inclusion. The difference between representation and manipulation becomes most clear when we listen to those affected. A community that is represented feels seen, feels that its needs are addressed by someone who understands their struggles and advocates for their interests. A community that is manipulated feels fragmented, voiceless, and disconnected from the power structures that are supposed to serve them. In Missouri, those living in urban centers may find their influence cut down by being split into multiple districts that are dominated by rural majorities, while rural communities may find themselves pitted against urban neighbors in a way that fosters division instead of unity. This is not just a political maneuver. It is a reshaping of the democratic experience itself. The tension between representation and manipulation is the difference between democracy as a living promise and democracy as a hollow word. When the map reflects the people, representation thrives. When the map is designed to control the people, manipulation wins. The Trump factor in Missouri's redistricting is not simply about the presence of one man's name on a political map. It is about the weight of his influence on the Republican Party, the loyalty he commands among voters, and the strategy he inspires among party leaders. Donald Trump has reshaped American politics in a way few figures have in modern history. In Missouri, his endorsement carries a symbolic and practical power that can tip the balance of primaries, embolden certain candidates, and pressure legislators into aligning with his agenda. The redistricting process is now infused with his influence, raising the question of whether this is about amplifying representation for his base or creating deeper divides that weaken the democratic process. Trump's influence is not confined to speeches or rallies. It stretches into the mechanics of political decision-making. His name acts as both a weapon and a shield. For Missouri Republicans drawing the maps, aligning with Trump-backed strategies is a way to solidify loyalty among his supporters, ensuring that districts are carved to maximize Republican dominance and minimize challenges from Democrats or even moderate Republicans. This means lines are drawn not only with a partisan lens, but also with an eye toward protecting Trump's legacy and maintaining his grip on the party. The pen does not just redraw boundaries of geography, it redraws boundaries of allegiance. The Trump factor amplifies divisions because it thrives on loyalty tests. In a state like Missouri, where his popularity remains strong, legislators are under pressure to create districts that secure safe seats for Trump-aligned candidates, reducing the space for dissenting voices within the party itself. This narrows the field of representation, as those who do not fully embrace his vision may find themselves locked out, not because of voter choice, but because the political map was engineered to favor a specific brand of republicanism. It turns the redistricting process into a loyalty mechanism, a way of ensuring that Trump's influence is not just temporary, but institutionalized in the very structure of the state's democracy. At the same time, Trump's influence acts as a divider. His presence polarizes communities, forcing districts into sharper partisan lines that mirror national tensions rather than local concerns. Instead of encouraging compromise or shared representation, the maps drawn under his influence are more likely to entrench extremes, reducing the chance of middle ground and deepening the ideological gulf. Communities that might otherwise have diverse representation risk being forced into political silos that echo the larger national divide. This factor raises profound questions about democracy in Missouri. Is the redistricting process serving the people of the state, or is it serving the political strategy of one man and his movement? The Trump effect makes the lines on the map not just about population or geography, but about the long shadow of his influence, the way his name reshapes loyalty, and the way his presence turns redistricting into a contest of allegiance as much as a contest of representation. Short-term wins versus long-term costs defines the central tension in Missouri's Trump-backed redistricting. For those driving the process, the immediate gains are clear: securing more safe Republican seats, ensuring Trump-aligned candidates have strongholds, and weakening Democratic or moderate opposition. On the surface, this looks like a victory, a way to guarantee dominance in upcoming election cycles and consolidate control over the state's political machinery. The allure of these short-term wins is powerful because they provide quick validation, headlines about Republican surges, and a sense of momentum that reinforces party unity in the present moment. But the long-term costs of these decisions often lie hidden beneath the surface, waiting to unfold years or even decades later. Redistricting based on narrow partisan interests risks eroding trust in the democratic system itself. When voters see maps that appear rigged, when communities recognize that their voices have been intentionally diluted, faith in the fairness of elections begins to crumble. Once that trust is lost, it does not easily return. Citizens disengage, voter turnout declines, and cynicism grows, leaving behind a democracy that looks strong on paper, but is weakened in practice. The short-term calculation is about securing power. The long-term consequence is about sustaining legitimacy. Missouri may see a GOP surge in the immediate aftermath of Trump-backed redistricting. But if that surge comes at the expense of balanced representation, the very foundation of democratic participation is endangered. People begin to feel that their vote no longer matters, that outcomes are predetermined by the way the lines are drawn rather than by the collective will of the people. This disillusionment can have ripple effects beyond one election cycle, shaping the culture of political engagement for generations. Another long-term cost lies in the quality of governance. When districts are engineered to be safe for one party, elected officials face little incentive to compromise, innovate, or address the needs of all their constituents. Instead, they cater to the extremes of their base, knowing that their real threat comes not from the opposing party in the general election, but from challengers within their own party during primaries. This leads to greater polarization, gridlock, and policies that reflect ideological purity rather than practical solutions. Missouri's redistricting, if driven by short-term partisan gain, risks entrenching leaders who are less accountable to the broad population and more beholden to the narrow demands of their most loyal supporters. Economic and demographic shifts also reveal the dangers of short-term thinking. Populations grow, move, and change, often in ways that cannot be predicted. Maps drawn to favor one side today may quickly become outdated, leaving districts unbalanced and unrepresentative in the future. A line designed to suppress one community's influence now may overlook that same community's potential growth, creating backlash and resistance that weakens political stability. What looks like a clever maneuver in 2025 could become a liability in 2030 as demographic realities catch up with political manipulation. The most profound cost is cultural. Democracy thrives when people believe in fairness, when they feel empowered to participate, and when representation reflects the complexity of the people themselves. Short-term wins built on manipulation undermine this culture, replacing hope with resentment and unity with division. In the pursuit of temporary dominance, Missouri risks creating a legacy of distrust, polarization, and democratic fragility that will weigh far heavier than any immediate political advantage. The people's voice is meant to be the cornerstone of democracy, the force that directs leaders, policies, and the future of a state. In Missouri's redistricting debate, that voice is caught between being the final word or fading into an echo that struggles to be heard. At its strongest, the people's voice has the power to hold politicians accountable, to remind them that authority is borrowed and never owned. It is the collective will of citizens that should shape districts, elect representatives, and determine how fairly power is distributed. Yet when maps are drawn with partisan intent, that voice risks becoming muffled. Communities may show up to vote, but their influence is predetermined by boundaries designed to weaken them. A district that once empowered them to elect a leader who reflected their needs may now scatter them across several districts where their concerns are drowned out. This creates the illusion of participation without the substance of impact, where people speak but their words carry little weight. The tension lies in whether Missouri's redistricting will preserve the people's voice as the deciding force or reduce it to background noise. A healthy democracy depends on citizens believing that their vote is more than a symbolic gesture, that their collective voice has real power to shape outcomes. When that belief is upheld, participation thrives and trust grows. When it is undermined, the voice of the people risks fading into frustration, leaving behind a democracy where lines on a map speak louder than the people themselves.